naš veteran Vlatko Košturjak danas će pričati malo o Docker security-u.
Okay, thanks for staying so late. I will talk about Docker security. Actually, this is something I will cover today. I will cover everything going from basics, what applications containers are, and so on. This is very short. The main focus actually will be the Docker security, of course, and some recommendations and everything in 30 minutes. So let's start. About me, I'm security consultant actually. I'm a regular open source security contributor for quite some time. You can see a lot of things on GitHub, although it's evil. And of course, yeah, I'm former president of Croatian Linux user group and was part of organizing committee of DORS CLUC and so on. So I guess I can take a few minutes because this is actually 20 years since Croatian Linux user group. I guess we can take a few minutes to actually show you how it looked like 20 years ago, to just get a feeling, right? Yeah, this is actually from 1998, because I cannot find an archive work from 1996, because the Linux user group was officially founded like in 1996. So yeah, it's 20 years, and this year we are celebrating it. And for example, you can see how we presented nothing at Info Forum and so on, right? And yeah, and the announcement of first Croatian Linux user conference, right? So this is really some kind of retro machine, right? So I guess the old people who are organizing this for quite some time, I think they deserve applause, right? So please give them to everyone who deserves. Yeah. So let's talk about the main topic, actually. When we are talking about Docker, we are actually talking about application containers. What that means? That means it's actually virtualization on application level. That means you are using same kernel, but you have several applications and you have some kind of isolation between them. The advantages over some kind of different technologies is that you have better resource utilization, right? If you want to have some kind of isolation, if you want to have it on different machines, of course you will spend much more resources, right? The isolation is actually better if you just have one machine and everything on it, right? So there are some advantages, right? And it's quite good. And if you just have a lot of applications and you're looking how to actually optimize your resources, maybe application containers are the way to go, right? So even cloud providers know about this, right? So you can host your Docker on different cloud providers and so on. So, but let's see what actually Docker is. You can actually call it like chroot on steroids, but it's really, really far from it, right? It's actually application containers, and everything is wrapped around LXC, actually a lib container, to be more exact. So you have same kernel, but it's abusing or using control groups, C groups, and namespaces. So that means every container have its own network space and process space and so on. The funny thing is it's written mostly in Go, so it have nice side features of this. So if you look at the basics, you have two things. One thing is containers, which are actually, if you're a programmer, you can look at it as objects which you instantiated from the classes. And you have images which are actually, if you're a programmer, some kind of classes which you want to instantiate and then have container itself. Yeah, this is something just to get the basics about the terms we are using here. So these are some kind of common Docker commands, but I guess you all use this one, so I will just keep it. Of course, you can run containers, commit, and so on. So if you never use Docker, it's actually something like Git-like flow for virtualizations. So for example, you can make new version, commit new image, and so on. So it's kind of Git workflow for containers. It's quite good. But if you look at the Docker security itself and the surface, actually the Docker security depends about a lot of things. These are just one of the things I mentioned here. So it just doesn't depend about Docker itself, right? It depends about physical security, I don't know, hardware you have, software you have, operating system kernel, blah, 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 and so on. And of course about people and organization. So of course we will just talk only about the Docker and surroundings. We will not talk about people, organization, hardware, physical, and so on. The problem is actually here to get everything right. You can do everything right on some of the levels, but forget something on the other levels, and then everything fails. That's why the security must work on all these layers, and that's why it's hard, right? So we will focus mostly about Docker itself, and images and containers, and and so on. So let's first see how I can actually build some kind of image container with Docker, right? I guess somebody who used some kind of Docker before, it's something like, okay, I can make a Docker file, base my image on Debian or whatever distribution I use, and then I can install some packages, and then I will have my template for the Docker image, right? And also, I can do it manually, right? I can start from scratch, and then I can do the Docker commit, get the Docker diffs, so I can see the files change between those two containers and so on. So it's kind of whatever you like, right? But the common problem, right, first thing is, okay, if you have something to lose like this, what I usually see in Docker files is, okay, we will just pipe this to shell, right? That's the problem, of course, if you are using HTTP, which is not encrypted, somebody can change in transport and so on. This is the most basic thing which can be abused, of course. For more advanced attacks, it's actually interesting, like proof of concept is like you can on server side detect the curl pipe delay. I will not talk much about this, but you can get this presentation on the end, and you have nice links to actually click it, and then you can check it out. It's actually nice work done where it can detect the delays and then send different version of file if you pipe it to the shell, or if you're just looking at it, what the script you're running. So I would definitely recommend it to read it. The other thing is, okay, I will just make a Docker file. I will have it build it on the Docker infrastructure itself, on the Docker Hub, right? Well, the interesting thing is they have limits, but it's kind of good limits, right? You can run building process for 2 hours, and you have 2 gigabytes of RAM and 1 CPU, right? So how you can define this? It's free resources, right, on the cloud. So you can use it, for example, for cracking passwords or scanning, right? You just make a Docker file, upload it to the Docker Hub, and then they build it. And during the build process, you can crack passwords, or you can, for example, scan someone else, right? Just a few examples. And when looking at the Docker's daemon itself, it really comes with reasonable security settings. Containers doesn't have all the capabilities. It only have like minimum ones. And for example, the Docker control API, which every client, actually Docker client, talks to this one, it only listens on Unix socket by default on most installations. And of course, you can also run like on Pax, GRSEC compatible, Cell Linux, and so on, AppArmor. And that means that actually you can do really additional hardening on top of it. What that means? That means you can add only capabilities you just need for this container, and you don't have to expose all the containers. The only problem which appeared, for example, during the time is that it doesn't have its own user namespaces, but that changed just recently, like a month or two ago. They implemented actually user namespaces. What that means? That means if you are root in container, you're actually talking with kernel as root anyway. So even if you are at the guest root, you are talking to the kernel same as host root, right? So they actually changed this in Docker 1.10. So it's not possible anymore, right? So the isolation is much better. And exploitation, for example, of the stack above, so that what I mean by this is exploitation of kernel is much harder now, and also exploitation of any like device drivers or whatever is much harder. The additional thing why you want to go to Docker 1.10 is actually SECCOMP profiles. What that is actually syscall filtering. So you can actually have some kind of, okay, you can define all the allowed or blocked syscall calls, which you don't want in your container, and you just write it in JSON, and then you can actually decide whatever you want with them. You can just block it or kill or whatever, and then you can get additional security with this one, of course. So definitely, and actually now with Docker 1.10, it comes by default, and it comes really, again, with reasonable defaults. So most of the applications will work, but probably for some special ones, we'll need some tuning, right? So definitely one more reason to actually use newer version. Let's see at the attack surface here on Docker API. Actually, Docker control, whenever you want to start container, get the image, whatever, is done through one API. And you can actually connect three ways. One is API, like control socket, Unix socket. One is TCP, like service, and HTTP service, right? In short, if you expose it, you are owned, right? Not just the container itself or all the containers. Actually, the attacker can get the root from that. So if you are giving someone access to this API, that means you are giving your host root to that guy. I wrote one proof of concept. You can actually see it here. It's a quick example. You just write how you can access the Docker API, and then you can get the host shell, root shell on that one, right? It's actually available on GIST here, and we can actually take a quick look at it. The trick is actually microphone, okay. There we go. Actually, I can copy paste the link, right? So you're much quicker. What it actually does is actually it tries to run new container with the volume as a root volume, right? And then I just chroot to the Docker itself, right? And then you can get root, right? Let's see more. This is if you expose, of course, the Docker API. So in short, this was just to illustrate people who are talking, who will bother with this? Okay, you just get the script, run, get the root. Okay, I will not do it, right? This is how usually education goes, right? So what to do, right? Do not expose Docker API, right? Whoever gets access to that control socket, who gets access to HTTP API or TCP socket, it's game over, right? If you still have to, I would definitely recommend using some kind of VPN, TLS certificates. In short, only trusted users should be allowed to control your Docker daemon. The problem is if you have some kind of hosting and you need to control it, right? You have to pay special attention if you are sending something to this control host and your input is not escaped, right? So you can get some kind of Docker injection, right? And what actually to do to prevent this, all these security things? It's actually, I would recommend if you have some kind of Docker containers images which you plan to run, don't have like different security levels on same Docker host, right? At least have same security level for same hosts, right? If you have some different security levels, okay, this is something I don't mind too much about getting owned, okay, put it on different Docker host, right? And there is actually very good TIS-Docker benchmark, which is available at CI Security, which actually helps in how to harden the Docker itself. Well, we can go through all of these things, what you can do, but it doesn't make sense, right? Let me show you. I know how to do this. Okay, I found out. So as you can see here, you have all those things, what should be done with Docker itself. So, okay. So, for example, verify that registry certificate file ownership is set to root, blah, 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 blah. Set container CPU priority appropriately, limit memory usage, blah, 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 and so on. So, it's really like very boring thing if you go over and over those items. But you have link here, and it's pretty good, like some kind of security baseline for having the Docker installation. Of course, that of course, that doesn't mean you secured enough other things, right? That means you have to stack up, right? You have to have like those security benchmarks installed if you are using Debian host for Debian host and so on, and then everything, all those layers which I mentioned before. And of course, it's even if you follow these benchmarks, you will see that they also ask for limits inside. The good thing is that new Docker version will come with also you could limit number of processes which each container will have. So that's also good news. But now it's not possible. Regarding networking, I would say that nethost can reboot your host, right? You can talk then to different control sockets, and then actually you can make it reboot. And I will definitely recommend running Docker like daemon which ICC false. ICC means intra-container communications, and if you say by false, that means all communication between containers will not be allowed by default. And that's actually good basics. Why? Because then you can actually, whenever you say link, when you link containers inside Docker, you can actually say, okay, I want to link this container with this container, and then they will automatically have like IP tables rules to only link over those ports which are needed. So that means if one container gets owned, not all containers will get owned, right? So in short, that's why if you're running with ICC, then if you expose only needed ports in Docker file, that means actually the security will get much better, right? Regarding the images, I will definitely recommend to base your images on trusted images, and also like use user directive, right? If you don't run something like user directive, that means usually everything inside container will run as root. That's something which we want to minimize. Of course, if you're also using like some older versions of Docker, that means we can actually talk to kernel as root without any restrictions. And definitely smaller image is smaller smaller exposure. Don't install packages you might need, right? You can then just actually add it later. Just install just the basics, right? What you need, the basic requirements. And don't build with SSH daemon, right? Because you can always now use like Docker exec and so on. And don't build all images from Ubuntu images. Not just its security is stupid, because you have larger attack surface, right? You also get your bandwidth hogged because everything is big as, I don't know, what I can compare to, but it's really big. That's why I recommend looking at the image layers IO. Then you can see all the images which something is based on, and you can actually decide whatever it fits you, right? And also, there's actually good two alternatives. One is Debian, which is much smaller image, and the other one is ALPINE. ALPINE is actually quite good. If you're not familiar with ALPINE, it's actually really good Linux distribution. It's security oriented and it's lightweight Linux distribution. It's not on libc, it's Musel, libc and busybox, right? And you can actually get really good results with this. Just to give you some examples, I have here, for example, Debian official Postgres, for example, image in here, right? Its size is 266 megabytes, right? And now when I created Postgres image with only like ALPINE, it's 23, right? So if you can compare these two, the difference is like about 200 megabytes of difference. That means 200 megabytes of attack surface more, right? Something which you need to maintain, something which have holes probably. So by statistically just looking, you actually statistically finding vulnerabilities will be much higher in 23 megabytes than in 200 and something, right? Oh, let me actually go down. So I just show you these examples. I also managed to, for example, get the national software resource library with all those hashes. If you are ever doing incident response and comparing the known file hashes with others, you know that this size is like 2 gigabytes, and I managed, for example, to get it in like 60 megabytes, and you can query it through the Docker itself. So you can do quicker incident response. Yeah, everything is quite good on ALPINE. The only problem is, yeah, they are not secure so much. I can actually talk right now about this one because they just fixed it like 3 months ago. It's this one. It's, for example, everything was quite good. Attack surface is very small. But the problem was that you can actually just write su and get root, right? That means that every image which was based on ALPINE actually had privilege escalation vulnerability. This is actually, let me see. It's here. As you can see, it was reported in November 2015, and they needed, actually, if you're wondering how do you think privilege escalation? Well, this is how it looks like. You just basically write SU, right? Yeah, we are talking about some space shuttle security, and you just write SU, right? And yeah. Okay, so as you can see, they didn't fix it in December. They said, we are still having major security issue after a month since reporting the issue. And a year after the first image released. Cool. So after some time, actually you can see that it's fixed on December 2015, right? So if you based your images on ALPINE, yeah, make better that you have newer versions, in short. So yeah, definitely ALPINE is quite good, but pay attention to this small little problem with privilege escalation. That's why how I found it out is because I was doing on some other project, it's called DOCKSCAN. It's actually vulnerability scanner for Docker containers and images, for Docker installation itself. And you can actually find it in GitHub. It's free. You can download it and run on your Docker installation. It will actually report you vulnerabilities it have found, right? And also some kind of hardening recommendations which you should do on your Docker installation. How it works? Well, it's actually a plugin-based system. You can write your own plugins. It's actually quite easy. I can actually show you how it looks like. So you have definitely modules, and here is audit modules, and for example, I don't know which one. For example, file system diff. Actually, as you can see that most about this one is actually description of the vulnerability, and the check itself is just here, right? So it's really small code to actually check some kind of security issue, and yeah, you have different modules for audit, reporting, and so on. So yeah, it's written in Ruby, as you could see on GitHub, and it's using, of course, Docker API again, but it actually helps you just to check if some kind of container image or container or image itself or Docker installation have some kind of security issues. There are also DOCKSCAN alternatives. I'm not the only one. They say actually this 1 year will be like a year of container vulnerability scanners, because they released actually 4 of them right now. One is DocBench, which is released by Docker guys themselves. It's actually shell scripts which just check the basic thing from the CIS benchmark security. So it will not find if your ALPINE image, for example, have this problem. There is also like Docker security scanning. This is actually old project Nautilus. They actually just released it 2 days ago, so I couldn't check so much about this one. So I cannot talk too much about this, but I'll check it out hopefully very soon. And there is also OpenSCAP compliance for the containers, and there is also the guys released just as I was releasing my DOCKSCAN. They were releasing COROS Claire. This is actually static scanner for containers. The problem is, why so much scanners? Because it's really complex. As you could see, all those things stacks up, and of course, for example, if you have a lot of those layers on which you are basing your images, the security actually depends on all of these layers, right? For example, this is Postgres official image, right? So whenever you have vulnerability in something of this, you still have vulnerability, right? So, yeah. There's a lot of these, and actually this COROS Claire is also a good one. I have to check this Docker security scanning, but I still don't have any. Like, really, they just published it on blog 2 days ago and make it official. So in short, if you're running some kind of Docker, yeah, it have some kind of sane defaults. There is still some things to fix, but the problem is application containers will not vanish, right? It's growing business and growing technology, and we actually have 2 paths. Whatever to hate and rent, right, and help make it secure. So I chose that the other way. And actually, if you follow those old recommendations, which I gave you with, for example, for Docker benchmarks, CIS benchmarks, with those hardening things and tips and tricks, you can actually have pretty good security, actually. That doesn't mean absolute security, right? But some kind of decent security level is achievable. So, yeah. This is something I finished with my presentation. Is there any questions regarding this?
Any questions?
Hi. are those security problems come from LXC containers, something below, or is it just a Docker thing? Like running when you are a root in a container and then you get to be a root on the outside machine. Is it the way it was?
You mean like for namespace isolation?
Yeah.
Yeah, namespace isolation wasn't just implemented in Docker. That was the problem.
But
so it's implemented now, so it's same now. It's not the problem in the layer below. Yeah, in short, yeah. Okay. But it's now implemented also in Docker, so it's way of past. You just need to upgrade your Docker, and since it's like a Go build, that means just updating that binary, right? Any other question?
No.
Oh.
To return to nostalgia, how was it when you were a president of Croatian Linux Users Association? When you were a president of Croatian Linux Users Association or group, when you said, how was it? Your tenure?
My 10 years of presidency, I don't know, I was dictator. I don't know. It was good. I remember it with good feelings, and it was really good time, definitely. That's why I'm back here talking again, right? So yeah,
Okay.
kind of good.
Thank you very much.
You don't have any like other question? Because we have OWASP meetup in 5 minutes in B2. It's not in XSET because they have some kind of concert with bands, and so they have probes before the concert. That's why we had to move it to B2. So if you're interested into application security, entrance is free. You can come to hall B2 here on faculty, and there will be like OWASP meetup, everything about application security in short.
Okay. Thank you very much.